Good evening, folks. This is Craig Shelton. You are watching The Cut right here on UTN 15.2. And as always, I want to say thank you for those of you that made that move and followed UTN from 43.8 over to 15.2. We love you folks for that, and we appreciate the support. Right now, I'm standing outside of the radio studio where we will be taping our new online radio show. We are HoustonMediaWatch.com. Myself, Richard Walker, Angelo Lawford, Jermaine Every, all the guys that make up HMW, Lamont Man. You know what we do. We are Houston's Media Watchdogs. We cover the teams and we cover the folks that cover the teams. Well, we have a new online radio show that'll be coming to you in December. We'll be getting started up here real soon, and you can get that Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 6, and we'll let you know what that launch date is. But right now, we're going to take you in studio to get some conversation with myself, John Harris from Yahoo Radio, and Angelo Lawford from HMW on the set of our new live show, which airs on Saturdays. We'll be telling you folks about. You can reach out to us on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll tell you all about it there. So sit back and enjoy the Texans talk as we discuss the firing of Gary Kubiak. Evening, folks. I'm Craig Shelton. Welcome to the show. I'm here for you every Saturday from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock right here on Access TV. It is HMW Sports Talk Live. The guys that represent on this show are all a part of my website, HoustonMediaWatch.com. That's www.HoustonMediaWatch.com. I will encourage you to check that website out on a daily basis, and you may want to do it several times a day, as we appreciate that support. We're Houston's Media Watchdogs. We keep up with what's going on the sports scene in regard to sports talk radio, sports on television, and we cover and follow the teams in a manner that no one else does. Joining us in studio today, flanking my left, is John Harris from Yahoo Radio, 1560 The Game. John, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, Craig. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. Always glad to have you on the show. For some strange reason, I wanted to refer to you as James. I saw some really, really bad movies the last few days where black people were rich and white folks were waiting on them. And one of the white people waiting on this rich black man's name was James. Pardon me on that one. That guy is Angelo Lawford. He is our soccer guru. He also knows a little bit about NBA basketball, and he doesn't shy away from the NFL. Of course, on this sports talk show in this town at this present date, who the hell would want to talk about football? Football has no relative interest right now in Houston, Texas. There's not one single topic I can think of that's football relevant that anybody would want to talk about. Really though, folks, it's all about the Houston Texans. It's all about yesterday's firing of Gary Kubiak, as I just, and we have plenty of that for you here on the show today. And we're gonna approach it, as I told you guys before the show, we're gonna approach it from an angle. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about the past in terms of things that's not relevant to where we're going in the future. I'm not going to spend any time on this broadcast today talking a lot about the Jaguars game and how poorly the Texans played, but there are some philosophical things in regard to the Jaguar game that may give you some insight, folks, into how the Texans got to where they are. You don't have an organization that's run more like a church than a business get to where they got to yesterday at that press conference without there being a slow matriculating process where some things had to go really, really bad behind the scene before we saw it play out on the field and later in that press conference yesterday. We'll try to get to the bottom of some of it today. We've got a lot of social network interaction on this show. We love to interact with you folks on Facebook, on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Craig Shelton HMW. I also have an alter ego Twitter handle, and if you follow me at Craig Shelton HMW, I'll let you know how to follow me on my alter ego on Twitter. How about that? You can also get at us on Facebook. You'll see that displayed on the screen throughout the show. Folks, as we said, the Texans, 2-11 Texans, fired Coach Gary Kubiak on yesterday. Gary Kubiak is 52 years old. Was in his 8th season, having coached the Texans since 2006. He posted a 61-64 record with the franchise. And was the 4th longest tenured head coach in the NFL behind Bill Belichick, Marvin Lewis, and Tom Coughlin. Now, right away out the gate, when you think about that tenure, you think about that statement, you think about that tenure, and you're in the same sentence with Bill Belichick, Marvin Lewis, and Tom Coughlin, well, the one thing that stands out right away is you got one other guy in there that hadn't won on the highest level, but then you got 2 other guys that justifiably have had that tenure in Bill Belichick and Tom Coughlin. John, your thoughts?
Well, I think the first thing when it comes to looking at that group in particular, you see Tom Coughlin and Bill Belichick with 5 rings amongst the 2 guys that have been in the same staff. They got a second opportunity. It's paid off. With Marvin Lewis, I think that one's interesting because I think if the Bengals hadn't been trending upward the last couple of years, then I think Marvin Lewis probably would have been gone after the 2010 season. Yeah. But he made some significant changes to his staff. And follow me, he made some significant changes to his staff defensively. Went out and got Mike Zimmer as his defensive coordinator. He went out and got Jay Gruden as his offensive coordinator. They make some smart decisions in the draft with A.J. Green. They took a chance on a guy like Vontaze Burfict. So a lot of those things hit, and the Bengals are trending in a positive direction. Gary Kubiak would have kept his job had the Texans just been average. Had they just been, 6-7, he would have kept his job. Had they been 7-6, he probably keeps his job. But because it completely bottomed out, and you started to see when it bottomed out, you started to see the cracks in the armor
Right.
and see where it could go. It's like a crack in a foundation. I see a small crack, and boy, it's going to be a big crack coming up pretty soon. But when you look at that company, Marvin Lewis is kind of like Gary Kubiak in that sense. He hasn't been to an AFC championship. He hasn't won a ring, but the Bengals are trending upward. And if they weren't, Marvin Lewis would have had a job a couple years ago, like a lot of people argue Gary Kubiak should have done or should have been after 2010.
Yeah, I agree. Marvin Lewis, I think, much like Gary Kubiak, a glorified coordinator. And I'm really surprised that he's been able to have the tenure he's had in Cincinnati with that fan base and with some of the success they've had, with past Bengal teams and success under some pretty good coaching. So Sam Weiss did a good job when he was there. You got some historic Bengal teams, things that you can that's kind of benchmarked in your mind when you go back and think about some of the players and some of their significance in regard to NFL history with, steroids and just a franchise that back when the AFC South was teams like the Oilers and Cincinnati.
Yeah, the Browns.
Think about
Yeah.
a little guy like people talked a lot about Case Keenum, and I would think a lot about Sipe, who was another smaller quarterback that was able to play in this league. And we'll talk more about Case Keenum definitely. The Texans owner Bob McNair said that defensive coordinator Wade Phillips will serve as an interim coach. That's kind of a no-brainer. There's no reason to go anywhere different than that. At this point in the season, the Texans have set an NFL record with 7 straight losses by 7 points or less. Now, let's get to some comments, first from Bob McNair and from Texans GM Rick Smith. We really need 2 hours for this show today, folks. Bob McNair, this has been a very disappointing year. We started with such high hopes. To have this string of losses is unacceptable. We normally would wait until the end of the year to evaluate our staff, but under these extreme circumstances, we thought it best to start that process now. Angelo, your thoughts on that? Did the Texans do the right thing and pulling the string on Gary Kubiak now? We're hearing a little bit that maybe some of the players may not be happy with the fact that the core was put on Kubiak now. I don't care what the Texans players think. Be honest with you, based on the way they play this year, you don't have an opinion in this. Angelo?
Well, to be honest, the mood of that press conference is kind of what I found to be the most interesting. Bob McNair, I don't know if maybe subtle, if not outright jabs at Gary Kubiak for some of his what you say about the players or no. I think he kind of was a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that he was a player's coach. So it's pretty interesting to see what happened yesterday. And what I took away from it was just the character that Bob McNair displayed at the podium yesterday afternoon.
I just don't see how Bob McNair could justify having an issue with Gary Kubiak being a quote unquote player's coach when I think we would all, if we had to profile Bob McNair in 5 seconds without having much time to think about it, we would term him as probably a coach's owner and a GM's owner if we're to believe the way that this team, like me, I often say it, in my opinion, from the outside looking in, the Texans appear to be run more like a church administratively than a football team because it's the wrong type of loyalty. You know what I mean? It's the wrong type of loyalty. HMW as an organization, I have my loyalties to the different guys in HMW. I'm not going to ask Lamont, one of our founding guys, charter members of HMW, to sit in this chair and do what I'm doing now. It's not his thing. You know what I mean? So I think loyalty, if there's love with loyalty, if those two L words are associated, well then you don't put people you love in bad situations where they can't achieve. And if you see that they are in situations that they can't handle, you find a way to get them out of those situations. I have some commentary later in the show that will explain in greater detail what my opinion is in regard to the Texans. I don't see this as a reward period for the fans. I don't think this is a time that we go, oh, great job, Bob. You know, you took care of business. You got rid of Kubiak. I don't see it that way at all. A quote from Rick Smith, Texans GM. What's taken place with this organization is unacceptable. Again, coming from Texans General Manager Rick Smith. We've got 3 weeks of an evaluation process left, and we've got to right the ship. Now, when I hear Rick Smith, John Harris, when I hear Rick Smith say what's happened with this organization is unacceptable, right? Part of me wants to say, but Rick, you're part of what's happened with this organization, and you're attached to it like an umbilical cord. You can't be separated from it. But then another part of me, which is where we go into the being run more like a church than a professional NFL franchise, I don't know that that's really the case, because I don't know that Rick Smith has been anything more. I don't know if the last 7 years for Rick Smith, I don't know if it's been a true GM job or if it's been an internship. You know, whereas now we get to see what Rick Smith has learned and what he can do. We're going to discuss that more as we move forward. And definitely we'll get into it a little bit greater detail. We're getting pretty close up to a break. Folks, we're going to get all over these Texans tonight. As you can see, we're going to kind of do this like the Texans draft might need to be next year for 2014, 2014. It won't be pretty. This won't be a sexy draft. Today's show won't be sexy, okay? It won't be a pretty show today because we're going to talk about probably some of the more uglier facets of what has happened over at Reliance Stadium and try to get some true perspective in on it and share with each other in that regard. I am Craig Shelton. That is John Harris. That's Angelo Lawford. You are watching HMW Sports Talk Live on Access TV. I want you folks to hang right in there. We're going to run to a break, and we'll be back with more in about 3 minutes.